Good morning.
Hmm.
My name.
Good morning.
Good.
How are
How
you?
are you? Um,
I am okay.
Excellent. So, allow me to start off. My name is Todd Grauer, and
And of course, my name is Edwin Osorio.
absolutely, today,
Yeah.
as you just said, we have Edwin Osorio with us, who's running for the second congressional district here in New York. So, I think the first question is, and just to start off, Edwin, why are you running for Congress?
Boy, I guess that's the most obvious of questions, isn't it? I'm running for Congress because I think Congress is broken. I think that workers all around the country that they're just not getting their fair share of opportunity, and it's really tough today unless you run a corporation. If you're a hedge fund manager, you're a CEO. You're doing wonderfully, and you don't need any assistance. But if you're working hard and you're trying to raise a family and you're trying to pay for your health care and you're trying to pay for education and just buy groceries, you're struggling. And I think part of the problem is that for some reason, as a country, we idolize capital and somehow we've devalued labor. And I think I want to flip that switch. I think I have something to offer to flip that switch and maybe bring something new to the
I'm glad
conversation.
you brought that up. In terms of labor, you yourself have spent 26 years as a civil servant and a union leader, not a career politician. What perspective does that give you that Washington needs right now?
Well, for starters, I've never been a politician. So what that means is that I've never had to run on the basis of having somebody. I've never had to make any decisions on whether or not I'm going to get elected. Although that's not quite true because as a local president, I do have to get elected. Um, but I always had my job. I worked for Social Security. I used to work for Social Security up until July 31st of this year. Um, but politics, in my opinion, it's turned into a game. It's a game of making sure you win the next election and being beholden to the people who are putting money into the coffers. And there's a whole population, a whole bunch of voiceless people out there who really matter. And I truly believe that we really need to flip the script. Not just years, but for decades, you've heard about a trickle down economy where if you give corporations the tax breaks that they need, give them all the financial incentives, that it'll trickle down to everyone else. And history has shown us that that doesn't happen. Now, if you flip that over and you do a trickle up, well, you put money into people's pockets. The average family, you put money into their pockets and they're going to spend it. They're not putting it into their offshore accounts. They're not putting it into the Cayman Islands. They're spending it. So it goes into the community and you have that multiplier effect. As a civil servant, I think I can focus on that premise because I'm not beholden to special interests. I'm not beholden to corporations. And most importantly, as a civil servant, I understand what it's like to struggle. I understand the whole idea of not being able to pay next month's mortgage or not knowing how you're going to pay it until the day before or a couple days before. I know the struggle. And I think we need people who can empathize with the American public.
Dare I say it's safe to say that as a former civil servant, you understand the need to answer to the people as opposed to the
Oh,
donors.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let me ask you, what do you want voters to understand about who you are? And not just as a candidate, but as a person as well.
It's a good question. I think it's important that they do know who I am. First and foremost, I'm a New Yorker through and through. I mean, anytime I leave the state, I stick out like a sore thumb. All I have to do is say two or three words, and people know I'm from New York. So I love my New York. But most importantly, once again, it's going to be a reoccurring theme with everything that I say because I'm about labor, I'm about workers. But personally, I became a civil servant because I myself needed service from the government. You see, as a child, as a juvenile, I came down with a condition called Stargardt's disease, which is a juvenile form of macular degeneration. Put simply, I was legally blind. And as a result, I had to drop out of school at an early age, and things were difficult. And but for Social Security, I would never have been able to make it. Because of Social Security, I was able to put food on the table. I was able to pay rent. And every month, that check was my lifeline until the next month's check came in. So when I through working with various state organizations, the New York State Commission for the Blind and Dyslexic, the Lighthouse, the Jewish Guild for the Blind, I received training, getting accustomed to doing things with minimal sight, and that also included going to college. They assisted me with my GED because unfortunately I had to drop out in the 10th grade because I couldn't see the blackboard, couldn't see the books. But they were able to provide me with enough training and adaptive equipment that allowed me to go to college. They provided me with proctors. They provided me with audio tapes of my textbooks and things of that nature. And I was able to get a degree. And when it was time to get a job, there was only one place I wanted to work for, is Social Security. And working for Social Security, I realized that there are a lot of people out there who struggle and through no fault of their own. And given the opportunity like I was given, they can also succeed. You see, I want people to see in me what they can be. If as a young child and your early ages of adult, if you can persevere and you can succeed, then anything is possible. But you have to be given the opportunities. You have to be given the tools. You have to be given the resources. And I feel too often those resources, those opportunities don't exist. And I believe because I've walked in those shoes before, I think I'm the perfect person to advocate for New
I think,
Yorkers.
as a matter of fact, that leads into my next question. I mean, in addition to obviously going from recipient to employee is a full life circle moment. Let me ask, how will your experience, the experiences you had as at the Social Security Administration and as a union president, shape your approach to legislation and constituent service?
Well, first and foremost, it's people first. And I, if I'm lucky enough to win, if I have the good fortune of winning, I will be going to Congress, not trying to maintain my position, but only thinking about what's right for the constituents of District 2. What are their needs? And because I understand firsthand what those needs are, I think when I remember my first few days working in Social Security, I came across people who were disabled and they were unable to work and they needed assistance. I came across people, one of the first questions we'd ask when we're doing an SSI application is, what kind of resources do you have? Do you have a bank account? And then when you would get responses like, "Oh, I wish I had a bank account." Wow, that tells you something, and you didn't just hear it once or twice, you heard it a lot. So I understand firsthand how people struggle. And I'm always going to go back to this. You give people, even people who are struggling, you give them an opportunity, you give them the resources, give them a chance. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to surprise you and they're going to persevere. And the thing is, when you bring people up, it brings the community up. When you bring up the community, it brings up the whole area, the whole city, the state, the country. Excuse me. So we need to elevate people one by one, family by family, community by community. So I really think that my juxtaposition to other people who have struggled, other people who needed a voice, other people who needed someone to advocate for them, that's all I've done. That's all I know. So it's going to be a natural transition to go to Congress and to continue what I believe I've been doing for 26 years, just in a different venue and on a larger scale.
Very interesting. Now, because I know you on a personal level, I've heard some of your platform. I know that you have spoken often of the New American Compact, the pie of prosperity.
Yes.
But for our
Yes.
listeners, what does that mean? And for potential voters, what does that mean? And how does it reflect
Sure.
your vision for
Sure.
America's future?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to 2024. 2024, if you're a Democrat, 2024 was not a good year for you electorally. You lost the White House. You lost the Senate. You failed to maintain the House. So what does that mean? All three branches of government are Republican. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how did it happen? Well, in large part, it happened because of Project 2025. So what do I mean by that? Well, Project 2025 was the Republican vision. It's how Republicans envisioned government. Now, it's rather subjective whether that's the proper vision or not. But what the problem was is that the Democrats did not have their own vision. All they did was say that vision is bad. The people who are running for that other side, they're no good. That's not a winning strategy. People don't want to hear you complain about the other person. They want to hear you say why you're better. What makes you better? What are the ideas that you're going to put forth that will improve the quality of my life, that will provide my family with security, whether it's economic security or physical safety? What are you going to do? And I believe the New American Compact, the pie of prosperity, does exactly that. It's what should have been around in 2024, but it's here 2025, and it's my vision of where we need to go as far as the country goes. And to make it very simple, it's predicated on a trickle up economy. It's predicated on putting money back into families' pockets, into people's pockets, so they can spend. You know, United States has a GDP of $30 trillion, and 2/3 of that is consumption. 2/3 of that is consumer driven. But if we don't have consumers, we cannot drive the economy. Now, I don't worry too much about corporations or hedge fund managers and CEOs because I think they're going to be okay. The more money we spend, the better it is for business. And we have the multiplier effect. I go to a grocery store and I buy my groceries. That grocer gets paid, and that grocer goes out to a restaurant and buys a dinner and then it keeps going. And that dollar turns into $2, $3, $4. The thing is, you have to give people opportunity once again. And I believe with a trickle up economy, the pie grows bigger. You see, my opinion is that Project 2025 shows you a finite pie with a certain number of slices, and once the slices are gone, they're gone. And the vast majority of those slices go to the wealthy, go to the corporations. Well, in my new covenant and compact, the pie is infinite. It can grow as high as consumption will let it grow.
Oh, it sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me as if, going back to what you originally stated, it's not just bad mouthing the other guy. You have a plan. This is your plan. This is what's in place, and you want to show people your plan.
It's never about bad. If I'm bad mouthing the other guy, that means I have nothing to say positive about me, and
I
that's a
couldn't agree
problem.
more.
My idea is let the other guy have his plan, let my plan bear out, and then democracy will work its magic. The better plan will win. It's as simple as that.
Now, Edwin, again, because I know you so well, I'm going to ask you one more question. And for those of you who don't know Edwin well, once you do get to know him, you will know that this is an important question. That question is, Edwin, is there anything today that you want people to know that I have not asked you yet?
Well, that's always a good question. And I would say that the one thing people should know is that my top priority is New York. My top priority is the people who live in the second district, because it's not a matter of what I prefer, because as a representative, my job is to represent. My job is not to seek out my own interests. And I'm going to run a campaign, and if I'm lucky enough to win, I will work in Congress with people. As a union leader, I'm well acquainted with the concept of negotiating, meeting in the middle, working with people who supposedly you're not supposed to like. I maybe I'm an outlier there, but in all my negotiations, I've always had a great rapport with the people that I'm negotiating with, because I believe in negotiating with dignity and decency. You treat people with respect, and the whole idea of reciprocity. I always believe that, metaphorically, you hold the door open for the person behind you, and the person behind you is going to hold the door for the next person. And I believe in that. And if I'm lucky enough to be sent down to DC to represent the constituents of the second district, I would pledge my loyalty to each and every one of them. And one other thing, and this would be rather unusual. Um, I'm a big student of history, and Abraham Lincoln is probably my favorite historical figure. And back in the 1860s, when he was the president of the United States, he would actually have open house where, during a certain period of time, you can literally walk into the White House, have a seat, talk to the president, and Mr. Lincoln, I need a job. Mr. Lincoln, I believe the post office needs to do better. And this is whatever it was. You got to sit with the president. I would like to have at least a certain number of hours dedicated every week if I'm in DC. And if I am in DC, I'll have a place in Long Island as well, where you can come into the office and have a sit down with your congressman and just talk about what your needs are and what you think would improve the
And
quality
you
of your
state
life.
that as opposed to just sitting with a congressional staffer. You want to meet with the constituents in person.
Well, well, the average person doesn't. It doesn't even occur to them to meet their
Right.
congressman
Right.
or congresswoman, or in many instances they don't even know who they are. I want them to know who I am, and I want them to know what I'm there for. And I'm not there to get rich. I'm not there to make big friends, and I'm there for them, to improve the quality of their life and provide their families with economic security. That's what
And
I'm there
that is
for.
something that voters need to hear. Voters need to understand that. So let's get this out and let's broadcast this. And remember, second district, November 2026, Edwin Osorio for Congress.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Edwin. Thank you for taking the time to meet with
Take
me
care.
today.
Okay. Okay. Bye.